Go for it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Strongman Winner Circle podcast. I'm Nicholas Camby. This is episode 37, and we have a special episode for today talking about America's Strongest Man, 105 kilo, with three former America's Strongest Men. So to start off, we have the 2017 winner, owner of Spider Strength and Spider Tacky, James Deffenbach. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We also have the 2018 winner, as well as the 2014, 2015, 2016 winner, four-time champion, Sean DeMarinis. And then lastly, what do you say, son? You interrupted my intro. Lastly, we have the 2019 winner, America's Strongest Terrence Rady, owner of Peerless Performance Systems.
Should have won 2018, but Sean screwed me over by being stronger than me.
I agree. I was there too. I saw it firsthand. And if I properly trained for that, Sean, I probably would have done well. But I was just maxing out all the time.
Remember that time remember when you did the farmers and you busted through the barrier and broke the barrier that was
and jammed your finger.
Yep, jammed my finger. Yeah, sabotage.
But but of course we have a fun episode for you guys today. This is James' first time being on the show. We've had Sean and Terry, they've had their own episodes, so if you haven't seen that, make sure to check those out. But I wanted to talk a little bit about just a little of an icebreaker, a little behind the scenes action. Sean was mentioning that Jiu Jitsu is the new CrossFit. Sean, would you like to elaborate on this?
Yeah, everybody's doing it. I don't know. Just seems like the easy thing to do. So I don't know. It was mostly just a joke and, to make fun of Terry. But now that I'm being put on the spot, I do still feel that's kind of true for everybody. It's just where everyone's kind of going now. All the ex-strength athletes trying to figure out what to do with themselves.
What's a draw, Terry?
I'll agree because it's something that is physically demanding, but the other way of strongman. So like strongman, you got to go into the gym, you got to grind, lift heavy weights, your body feels beat up. Jiu-jitsu, you could train more frequently, your body gets just as beat up, but it's like the cardio and like mental, it takes a lot of mental tenacity to have, a giant person on top of you trying to strangle you, and you kind of got to push through it and get out of that situation. So it's just I see a lot of people that are good, like gamers or mental competitors, going towards jiu-jitsu.
Very cool. Someone asked when you're getting your blue belt.
What?
On the fan question, someone asked is when you're getting your blue belt.
Who knows, man? I don't know. I don't really care about the belts. I just want to beat people. That's all I care about.
All right. Well, you heard it here.
For the record, I do approve of jiu-jitsu much more than I do CrossFit.
I would hope so.
Just for the record, I think jiu-jitsu is awesome. It's becoming really popular, but it probably has a lot to do with I don't know, maybe Joe Rogan's podcast. Would you say? Would you think?
Yeah.
Because like he's such an advocate for it, and like everybody's doing it, but it's also a badass sport. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. I hope I can find my way over to it sometime.
I think people in the US are just angry, so like they're looking for a way to like channel their violence, like a control matter.
I like it. Yeah.
But so we got a nice little show today. So let's talk about some of the meat and potatoes. But in the past, probably a few years, the procard system has been under attack, usually by individuals that never got their procard. In your guys' opinion, is the procard notable and still something that athletes should strive for, especially for 105 kilo athletes? So let's start with James. Of course, we haven't heard from James yet.
I think it's notable just because, like, people will say, I did this despite not having a pro card. It shows that pro cards are on their mind. Everyone wants the pro card. Ultimately, it's effectively, it's a qualifier. It means you've got top 3 at national or top 3 at the Arnold. You've done extremely well at some of the toughest competitions out there. And that has earned you the right to compete at pro shows, primarily America's Strongest Man 105K for us. And that's a big deal. It's one of the toughest, most exclusive shows that exists in weight class strongman. That's the most prize money of any weight class show every single year. As long as I've been around, it has more prize money than anything else. It's a cool show. It's an accomplishment even being there.
I like it. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. What the status of America's Strongest Man is is what drew me to the sport primarily. You know, when I knew there was America's Strongest Man, I could compete in that show. You know, that was obviously back in 2008, but you know, and to that point, the pro card, you know, has kind of been devalued over the years, mainly with the addition of new organizations. So, you know, for the longest time, it's always been Strongman Corp or whatever you know, it was called before that. I kind of forget. What was it, James? NAS. Yeah. You know, when the majority of this first started, that's all there was. And there was a clear ranking system. You know, you could win your pro card and be labeled as a professional. That was another huge draw for me to the sport, you know, 10 years ago or whatever. But, you know, things are a little different now. So I think people are attacking the pro card just because the times are different. But, you know, what it represents is that you're one of the best. And if you can get one, then, you know, you're known as one of the best and you get to compete in America's Strongest Man. And, you know, that's valuable, I think, in my opinion, but it's also more valuable with the athletes you compete with. And if all the best athletes are going to whatever show they're going to, that's where you want to be, whether pro card or not. That's really what matters, is competing against the best. But, you know, the pro card is what got you to compete against the best. So, you know, that's what was always valuable to me.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on kind of what both of them said. But in my opinion, the reason it's gotten devalued is because of the change of allowing so many cards to get obtained within a calendar year. It used to be when the pros competed, it really was like the best of the best. And then there were individuals on both sides, male, female, that would get these pro cards and then just not do anything anymore. And it was letting in, like, you know, people that were still high level athletes, but, you know, could have probably taken another year or two in the amateurs before they took that step to the pro, just to like, because it when you make the transition from like you're an amateur to then you get your pro card, the rules change, like your training changes, the way you approach everything changes. And some people, I feel, don't have that experience under their belt to make that jump into the pros. You know, they could use like another year or two development, kind of like a Gatorade G League type scenario. You know, you get those guys that look really good in college, then they go to the pros too soon, and then they get dusted, and then they got to spend a year in the minors. But, you know, we didn't have that. So now it's like, I feel like with the addition of federations for sure, but also with just like the looseness at which you could obtain a pro card, because like honestly, the people that were getting the pro cards for the longest time, you were the best at, you know, there were a couple that like were flukes or whatever, but you know, winning the Arnold, the best, you know, you're winning nationals. Like when you start giving out like, you know, second, third place, especially on years whenever like stuff hits in the economy or whatever, and nationals might not have a ton of people there, then you get some extra cards that are just like fluffer cards that people never use.
Yeah, the change you're talking about, so in 2017, prior to 2017, there was one pro card for winning nationals, one pro card for winning the Arnold, and then pro cards for winning any platinum pluses or before that pro-ams.
Right. Yeah.
So they moved away from the platinum plus / pro-am pro cards, so it'd just be national and the Arnold. I mean, it's kind of weird to get your pro card not winning a competition. Like then you never get another chance to win nationals, you know? But overall, I wouldn't say the quality of athletes has gone down because of that. You look at Anthony Deal, got a third place pro card, and he went on to win America's Strongest Man the next year. I wouldn't say that had brought down the quality by any means. I did like the platinum pluses. A lot of those were extremely stacked shows. I know Sean got his pro card at a platinum plus, Nick did. But I think that it's still a high level. If you look at any of the cross federation shows, almost all the top people have a Strongman Corp pro card, you know?
Good. You know, even the Wall Street lifter that you see on like Bar Band, he always like repost all his big presses. He still has pro strongman under his in his background or his profile, just because he won that one show. I think there was a Platinum Plus back out west that there were 4 individuals and he ended up winning, but that's the only show we did. Kind of similar to what Terry was saying, like they win and then they kind of stopped competing, but he still keeps that in his profile, which I think is always pretty interesting. But when it comes to, for my answer, in case you guys are interested, I think it's just one more puzzle piece in terms of if you want to be a great American 105 kilos. So of course, a lot of the best have come through either Strongman National or not only Strongman Nationals, but America's Strongest Man, but allows you to go to that top show every year without actually qualifying. So you get to save yourself a little bit. You can focus a lot of that energy on qualifying for other shows, like that's a Worlds, that could be a Clash, or if that's going overseas. So I think it's just one of those things that you have in your pocket that you can compete every year, and then you're able to keep going throughout and don't have to spend so much energy requalifying or going through nationals. And especially with nationals, at one point I felt like the weights are very standard, of course very common events. You have a lot of guys, so I felt like that kind of training, if you're training for nationals consistently like 3 or 4 years in a row, it's not very conducive to be a very well-rounded strongman, because you're just focusing on kind of middle events. You're never working on maxes, you're never working on really heavy carries or anything like that, because you'll find those at America's Strongest Man, but not at nationals. So I think if you want to elevate yourself to the highest level, you got to get into a system where you have these different events that you can compete in.
Well, we have
so
had
kind of like
a
what
max
you're
event
talking
the
about.
last 3 nationals now. So I mean, there's a change from when we did nationals. There's now max events at every nationals over the last few years. Some things are getting heavier, especially with the separation of weight classes. We had the subclass system before, so effectively the 231 weights had to be something that under 200s could do. So now we could kind of open up those a little bit. So national, it's getting harder in my opinion. It is getting heavier. It's not, when I got my pro card, when I went nationals, nothing was hard. I just had to go really, really fast. And I feel like that's not so much the case anymore. Especially with the max event.
Bring back the 1-arm farmer's deadlift circus dumbbell medley. Bring it back. I want to see that make a return.
No, that was just goofy.
Was that the year that Brian Barrett won?
Yeah, I think so. That was what, 2015, 16?
I don't
15.
remember, but I think I kind of vaguely remember that. Like, what made that up?
I remember Dion explicitly saying, "Don't drop the dumbbell from overhead." And then the guy, Joe Sheffield, right, from Michigan, something like that. He was taking the dumbbell and missing every rep. He would get it right here and immediately throw it on the ground and then just pick it back up. And then eventually it just snapped in half. And then we were out of a dumbbell. So they had to drop it down to 3 lanes.
Yeah, I think the Platinum Pluses should get brought back.
Oh man, Plat Pluses were fun.
I mean, thank God those were there. I never wanted to do nationals in my life. I mean, that was my incentive to get a pro card, was to win a Plat Plus, so I didn't have to go to nationals. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good mix having that. And now nationals, just to run it effectively, it's hard to do a lot of static events, max events, you take too much time. So, there's logistics to consider with that. But, having the Plat Pluses and nationals, kind of a good mix of both, and you get a good mix of athletes. America's Strongest Man it's great to have a mix of athletes that are all different, and to have different skill levels. I mean, that's what makes it competitive. So, doing the same things over and over and keeping it one pace all the time isn't really good for the sport, I don't think either. But
I had 28 guys in my Plat Plus. So it was a pretty busy. It was almost.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's great. I mean, and then having multiple pro cards isn't a bad thing, especially when you look at it from the organization standpoint of, America's Strongest Man. We're lucky to get, 10, 12 guys, the majority of the last 5-6 years, something like that. It's been tough to get people to show up, because people do get their pro card and they disappear for whatever reason, whether it's, good reason or not, but whatever, it happens. So, I thought it was a good change to drop 3 pro cards at nationals, just given the volume of competitors. That was a good choice, I think. Not a huge fan of this whole qualifying online to bring in people to the show, but I don't know. That's probably a different question, different topic altogether.
Yeah, just kind of rounds it out. I think with that, this year we'll have about 12 people in total if everybody shows up. So again, another decent class, but it's always top 5 are the ones always kind of going at it.
I always
Right.
wish that there would have been like a point system, like, so a plat plus would automatically qualify you for nationals. Winning a level 1 would get you X amount of points. Winning a level 2 would get you X amount of points. And then you had to have X amount of points accrued a year to qualify for nationals. That way the competitor pool would have been like more concentrated with more elite people. That way everyone that's getting a pro card is like the best of the best. So we have like a good system, and then you could like justify giving out 3, and because you know those people are going to keep going and keep pushing it, rather than, you know, handing out like maybe 2 and then 1 for somebody that, you know, just doesn't ever do anything anymore.
Well,
They just
I mean,
take
so
the
a lot of
pro card
people always
away.
thought there's too many people at nationals. But I think that's a problem exclusively with the 231 men and heavyweight men classes. I mean,
Yeah, like the lightweight
there's
women.
11 other weight classes. Now there's 8 other weight classes that have good numbers, but they're not crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
like
like,
light and middleweight women, and then like the middleweight men.
yeah, well, the middleweight men and heavyweight men have always had far and away more than anyone else. It's getting the change from 13 classes to 10, I think, is an improvement. But I don't think there's too many people at nationals. I think the people that I don't think there's that many people that shouldn't be there. For the most part, the people at the bottom are people just got hurt, or, you know, something happened. It's not because they shouldn't have been there. I think it's real competitive, and I don't want to ask people to have to qualify via like more than one show. You know, when you do a point system, you're talking about having to, you know, travel, do multiple shows, and then you might get people that are just able to travel and do 6 shows and qualify by points. That isn't as good as someone that got, you know, that beat them in the 1 or 2 shows they both did together.
For sure. But I mean, at the same time, I think that it makes the level of competitor better, because it's forcing you to compete more, gain more experience. I think it makes the quality better. And I think it makes nationals and all of that stuff more exclusive, which is going to further drive the competitor to push themselves harder to get to that level. Like it's not that it's like an impossible barrier to achieve, but it just, I think from like, at least for me, from a competitor standpoint, you know, it would make me want to like compete more and more and more, get more experience and become a better competitor, so I can go and qualify for these bigger and bigger shows. Because obviously with anything in life, the more exposure you have, just like competing, the more you compete, the better you get as a competitor.
Sometimes, not for everybody. Plenty of people have done a shit ton of shows and still suck and will always
That's
suck.
fair. That's fair.
So, I'm with James on that. I think you have a valid argument, Terry. Not that this is really a topic to beat to death, but I think you both have a good points. But, you know, somebody like me, you know, as we were talking before we started this chat live here and recording it, we were talking about how, you know, competing often and how it's important. You get more experience and you get better at it. I didn't agree with that. I mean, I do agree with competing, but I think there's a level to compete to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself at a good performance. So you're not just beating yourself into the ground, competing, trying to gain experience. I mean, you're always going to learn something new every time you compete, but I think there's a fine line of competing way too much. And I think the problem is people do compete too much, especially if you look at the heavyweight class, like the open pros compete way too much and they burn themselves out, and it's just inevitable that something's going to go wrong. You're going to get injured and it's going to take too much from you. You just can't do this sport and be at peak levels when you're competing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a year. You just can't. And the guys that do that, they're never the best.
Who would want to compete 10 times a year? I'm saying like 5, 6 shows a year. That's totally doable for an amateur athlete.
Yeah, as an amateur, but as you get better, you can't put that much focus into it.
No, then it's like 2 to 3 once you get to the pro level.
3 to 4 at the very most. Yeah.
Because the weights just get heavier too.
Well,
So
right, but your training gets heavier, right? So you need more time to recover. And
dang it, Sean, I'm just talking about gaining contest experience, becoming a vet.
To piggyback, so Oleski's been competing. I think he's done like almost 6, 7 shows this year. He did 6 or 7 shows the previous years. You think he's able to do that just because he's younger, 26, 27? Same thing with kind of Mitch Hooper this year. Do you think it's one of those cases where just they're still young enough to be able to take on that load and keep competing on all these shows, sometimes back-to-back weekends?
Well, but he's been getting hurt quite a bit in every show he competes, and he recovers fast, but he's been hurt like the last couple of shows hasn't. He's gotten hurt during the show.
Yeah, he's a little bit.
Yeah, it could be catching up with him because I mean, at the end of the day, like I don't think people understand he is not big. he's not a huge dude, like compared to everybody else in that class. That's why what he does makes him so freaking incredible, because he's not like the most massive guy on the planet.
But the weights are moderate for him. He smokes these weights, so it's probably not taking a whole lot out of him, really. I mean, maybe for him, the weights are doable enough to where he can just jump into these shows and he doesn't really have to peak very hard to do well. Maybe these are just, just easy.
For sure. But I'm saying like the how heavy those things are, because like he relies on a lot of like power and explosion whenever he lifts. So it's like those weights, like just being at a smaller frame and like undersized body weight could definitely take a toll on you.
Yeah, it does. I mean, from the way everything looks, I mean, you wouldn't think that about him, but he's definitely an outlier. That's not the norm. Yeah, any normal, well, not normal, but any person of that size doing the weights that he's doing would probably destroy a lot of people pretty quickly, but he seems to handle it. So,
and for the record, guys, he's about 140 kilos or like 308. So he's still,
which is solid. I mean, look at Pujanowski. He did the same thing at roughly around 290.
Natural too.
So of course, moving on. So America's Strongest Man has been a very competitive and heavy show over the year. And of course, one of the big shows for us, 105 kilos. I personally have done 6. I'm doing my 7th, so it's always been pretty important for me. But what has America's Strongest Man meant to you over the years?
I mean, for my career, like as an amateur, that was like the one show that all the best guys, like I knew the names of everyone competing at that show. I was following them on the forums and all that stuff. And it was like, that's the goal, is to get to America's Strongest Man. Again, it has the most prize money out there. It's the most exclusive show out there for most of my career. And that was always the goal. You win nationals, you kind of think you're on the top, but you're coming in mid to bottom pack once you hit the ASM level,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hear that, Dan Hughes? That's what happens when you win nationals. You're just back at the bottom, working way up. How about you, Sean?
Yeah, that's it, man. Now, America's Strongest Man is what drew me to the sport. That's all I wanted. I wanted to compete there. I wanted to win there. That was the main goal. That was the only real, I would say realistic goal that I had when I first started the sport. I had some other goals that I would have loved to achieve, but that was the end all be all. But the times have changed, unfortunately, and now people put value in other shows that I don't think deserve it, but whatever, America's Strongest Man always was the end all be all for our weight class. And until other people decided that they wanted to start their own organizations and, do things a different way, that's when it started losing some of the momentum, and people started using their spite against Strongman Corp and whatever else to boycott it or make it not as valuable. But to the athletes, to the real athletes that compete, ASM is where it's at.
I always say that there's all these different world championships for us 105 kilos. So you have SEL, you have Ultimate, you have OSG, but there's only one America's.
It's true.
Yeah, that's right.
Terry, you want to add anything before moving on?
Yeah, I mean, my first ASM that I ever watched live was the year Sean won in the casino parking lot when you beat Clayton. That was the first one I ever watched live. But for me, ASM didn't hold the value to like in the same way it did for you guys. I looked at it as something I wanted to win just to like add to the title of like the resume of what I've won. I wanted to win like, a Worlds. I wanted to win the Arnold. I wanted to win, nationals, which I never did a national. So I don't know why I wanted to win it. And then I wanted to win the Arnold. Every year I would be like, I think I'm going to do nationals. And then I just wouldn't. But yeah, I wanted to it was just something I wanted to win. But when I lost to Sean in 2018, then it became something like super important to me just because of I saw his stupid face and I was like,
and then it got personal.
Yeah. And I took that personally. So
listen, if you would have won, I would have taken it personal. So don't worry.
Would you have came back for 2019?
Yeah. Would have killed myself getting that stupid 4th title just because I fucking wanted to.
And for the record, I was saying that if I did better training earlier, I would have beat Sean in 2018. I probably wouldn't, but I like to give Sean a hard time for you guys that don't know. But you were talking a little bit, Terry, maybe we can kind of follow up into the next question. So of course, everybody's won America's Strongest Man in this chat. What are some of the trials and tribulations of winning? Of course, when you guys won America's Strongest in your year.
And what do you mean, like trials? and
So,
tribulations?
so
Yeah.
like for
Elaborate
instance,
on that.
yeah. So for instance, what were the most difficult challenges of getting mentally prepped, getting physically prepped to win that type of show?
Battling your own demons, just because you know when you want something so bad, you put that extra pressure on yourself and it makes it really tough, that. And kind of with any show, but I would think more specifically to a high level show like that, when you're training for that show and doing the events, you never know like how good you're really doing. You don't know what the other guys are doing, you know what I mean? And it can be tough because you can beat yourself on the ground, think you're doing great, and really you're not doing that great. Or, the other way around too. So, I mean, it's just a tough show because of the pressure. Everybody wants to win that one. That's the person who's considered to be the best in the country for that year. It means a lot. So there's a lot of internal pressure with it. Plus the weights are heavy as shit usually. And, it's not easy to do and survive through it, and especially just training all the way through to the show and then competing and surviving. I mean, even when James won his, he won with a torn bicep. I lost my leg and now I have one leg, because of what happened, so, things happen, man.
Hey, elaborating on the pressure, especially heading into the show, any tips or tricks of the trade to alleviate pressure heading into a big show like this? I'm a week out, so any suggestions for me, Sean?
Oh, for you, nothing
For,
really.
or for me and other 105 kill athletes
Just
competing
do what
nationally.
you're going to do. Well, you got to remember that you can only control yourself. You can only do the best you can do. As long as you go out there and you don't make too many mistakes, you'll probably have a decent day. And everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's stressed. Everybody's beat up. Everyone's tired. Everyone is anxious. Everybody's in the same boat. So, nobody really has a clear advantage over one another. Anything can happen on that day. And, you got to try not to put as much pressure on yourself to win. You just got to go and do what you can do. And if it's enough and you're the best that day, you're going to win. So, it is what it is.
I think everyone's mental game is different. Like a lot of people, they have to be confident going into it. They have to believe they're going to win. For me, like being neurotic is my strength. I always believed I had to get a half second faster on these training runs, or, I'll lose that event. I'll have to go do another rep on this. Like I was just super neurotic on every prep, and it, for some reason, works for me. I don't know why, but that's just kind of how I work.
Don't fight your instincts.
Yeah.
I like it. So Terry and I, we started back in 2012. Sean and James started a handful of years prior to that. But has the standard principles of what makes a great 105 kilo strongman changed in your opinion? So for instance, let's say back in like 2016, we had a few like 400-pound log pressers in between like Sean and Rob, and of course deadlifting between the mid 700s and 800s. Now it's a little different nowadays. Of course, you have a lot more varied events. You have a lot more kind of like speed events. Like if you go into something like a clash, is a little more endurance. But do you think usually what it took to be strong in 2012 or so is it still the same principle in 2022?
I haven't competed in a while, so I don't know, but I would like to think so.
How about you,
I
Terrence?
think the bar's higher.
All right, go ahead, James.
Like I think the bar gets higher every year. I think, when I was starting, my crew could just win every show because they're the only ones who are training on implements, and now like everyone has coaches, everyone has diet coaches, everyone has every piece of equipment you could need for the show. Like the standard's just higher. And I do think even statically, right now there's Jesse, there's Unique, I don't think it's the top static lifts lifters are weaker than they were before. I think you have to be more well-rounded on a lot more events now. But I think overall the people are just getting better at it.
Very fair. And that's kind of something that I probably
hold on. You think the athletes are getting better, James?
Yeah. So Nick had the log record until like yesterday or whatever. Jesse Nelson's like right
Emmanuel.
there.
Yeah.
We got a couple 800-pound deadlifters. I believe that, so the statically it's about the same, but I think the average, medley times and other stuff is better than before. I think the dumbbell performances have increased. It's definitely it was a new event in around 2012, 2014. Like, it was rarely done back then, but back then we were looking at like national would have 140-pound dumbbell. Now we'd have 180, 190 pounds for amateur nationals and 210, 220 for pro nationals, for ASM.
So the events and the weights have gotten, and they've increased in difficulty, but are the performances keeping up with that?
I mean, I think so. There's, when you look back, you kind of, see what people did throughout their career. Right now, we're only seeing what people have done so far. So I think there's that tendency to just believe that, back in my day, we're this or that, but I think there's just a lot of incredible athletes now. And I know, like, me trying to stay in the mix for 2010, 2020, 2021, I had to keep getting stronger. I couldn't just, use my 2017 strength and keep winning.
Yeah.
The bar on a lot of things is raised every year.
As it should.
I would say there are more specialists like in the sport. There's a lot more varied specialists, like big deadlifters, big pressers. I would say the gap between the best is a little bit wider. Like Camby, you're a freak, you're extremely well-rounded. But I would say, like, I don't know. I feel like if it were peak me still competing and peak Sean and peak James, like, I don't think we would have trouble at any of these shows. That's just my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I think it could be anybody's game, but it always was that way, though.
yeah.
I mean, even when we all were competing, it was anybody's game. I mean,
I think
I had 1 year that I
higher
had-
level dudes, like, in better exposure and better social media. Like, everybody knows more now,
Yeah.
So
But I think the onboarding of qualifying for shows virtually has created more specialists. That and social media just has created more specialists,
absolutely.
which I think is just dog shit.
But I will say that, like, we also, we're getting more and more international competitors here that are really good too, that we didn't, get to compete with all the time, maybe at the Arnold or, like, an SCL show or something. But now we're getting more international guys over here, which is fucking great, because, for the longest time, they were fantastic over there, like, Ben Kelsey and all those guys, like Rob Ward. So it's nice.
Like at OSG, we're getting the international people.
Them and Clash,
Who did
McKeegan.
Clash have besides Canadians?
McKeegan was incredible, bro.
In Ireland?
Is he from Ireland? Yeah.
And then OSG, some of them dropped out, but there's originally signed up. There were like 13 different countries for the 105 kilo, which I thought was pretty neat. I thought that was the most kind of varied they had in the past few years that's been running. But yeah, the more, especially when we start getting individuals coming from, I think there's Michael Connor's competing in Paris for the Ultimate Show. I think there's a guy from Puerto Rico going, which is pretty.
That's so cool.
Which is pretty interesting. But then, like last year OSG, I always use the example of Paul and Melvin from Zambia. We were supposed to have some Indian competitors, so it's always great that the kind of expanded to kind of different countries. But of course, normally they come and they kind of learn that America is not to be messed with because we're the best.
I would agree. We're pretty good.
So of course I was mentioning off air, but Tommy Sharp is asking for predictions on this year's America's Strongest Man. I don't particularly like to do predictions when I'm actually competing in it, but do you guys have any favorites or any thoughts you want to lend for this particular show coming up on Saturday?
I think Sean's been competing in training in secret. He's like a Rep 240 right now. He's going to show up and show us all what he can do.
Ooh, good Lord.
Show us the abs, Sean's.
Do you imagine?
It's the smallest I've ever seen Sean head, so he might be 240 right now.
I think I'm actually still 250.
Are you?
I
Oh, you
think
can catch
so.
him 250.
I will
Oh.
definitely not be an America's Strongest Man.
I've seen you cut from worse.
Probably
I don't know the full roster, but Frankie Provenzano's had a really good prep. You know, if he can execute and keep his head, you know, in the game and not overthink things and just kind of I think that's one big thing with the sport is a lot of people tend to overthink the competition process. You can think during your training, whether you're trying to get faster and stuff like that, but when you're competing, you just gotta kind of trust yourself and let like the game come to you, you know, like Sean fucking in 2018, that farmers carry, Sean's farmers are dog shit. I don't care what anybody says. But you know, I thought Camby was going to be the divider between me and Sean on that farmer's carry, and you pulled it out of your butt and got second behind me on that farmer's carry. And I think you beat me by what, 2 points? 2.5
in the show.
Yeah.
I think it was like 100 points, but whatever. I don't know.
Like 5.5 Dallas, 2 at ASM. But yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, those were big points for you. Like, you know what I'm saying? And you just had a way to you game. And but you know, James is the same way. Like when it comes to like car deadlifting and shit, like you just kind of let these like big shows, you got to trust yourself and let it come to you, you know?
Yeah. I think Camby's gonna win. So I think everybody else should
I'm not looking for that, but I was gonna say Jesse Nelson. I'm looking forward to see how his training. He always looks great. He looks better every show. So I think every time he hops on the field, he's just that much better. So,
yeah, he had a good show at Clash. You know, a couple things didn't go his way, but he had a good show.
I don't think Jesse has a training crew.
No, I think he's by himself.
He's a lone
And
boy.
if that was to ever change, then things would be very different. But you can't expect to be the best at this sport without a crew of people. You just can't. Now Jesse has stupid static strength, but
yeah, I trained with a crew 1 day a week. It was always on Saturdays when we did events. That was the only time I trained with
me
people.
too.
But
That's
it makes it so much different. Your training is so much
Yeah.
so much
Well,
healthier.
you need people to check you. You need reassurance. You need coaching. You need on the spot coaching. No offense to online coaches, even though I think you all are pathetic losers. But anyway, you need people there. You need people to watch you, not on a video, in person. You need to. It makes such a difference. But Jesse's one of those guys where immense strength, probably, you know, one of the strongest 105s to ever do the sport, and just statically just gifted, you know, super well. And if he had a crew of people, things would be very different. But Camby, you know, you've been on your way up and coming for a long time, and you're kind of reaching your peak here. But then look, you know, you have crews, you have multiple gyms with multiple crews that you can go to. You're always learning. That's how you progress, you know. That's it. And
Well, it's nice to hear, like, for instance, of course, you're going through your own trials and tribulations, and then you're talking to someone else, and then they're having the similar feels or certain difficulties, especially with their prep. And then you figure out like, oh, the things that I'm going through is not only particular to me, but particular to other individuals. So it's not that hard. So I should just chill out and just focus on lifting weight.
yeah.
Anything, James, would you like to add anything?
No, I think if Jesse Nelson wants to win, he should move to Raleigh.
No,
Guarantee he'll win everything.
I don't think you're going to get him out of the mountains.
Probably
he
not.
loves those mountains.
He lives in the trees.
He moved from San Diego. Of course, we were saying like San Diego is very beautiful. I know California's getting more expensive, and the politics are just okay over there. But yeah, I thought that's quite the move. So he loves those mountains. I remember when I made the poster for him, West Virginia. But when I made the poster for him, it was like a
did a total 180. Did a total 180. Went from California to West Virginia.
But yeah, he loves mountains, loves hiking, he loves that nature and the quietness. So I think it was
You can always vacation and do that, but all right.
So we're getting a little bit into the fan questions. But nowadays, in terms of either watching contests online or in person or just watching lifts, what weights on certain events that make you go, wow? Like, maybe we'll go, let's say 105 kilos. So let's say in this area, what type of press, how big of a deadlift do you need to be impressed these days?
Talking max? What are we talking here?
Hey, max for reps. a good example you saw the other day that you were just like, wow, this guy is pretty dang strong?
I think like if somebody hit like a 365 log for like a clean and press each rep, like a triple or 4 as a 105, that'd be fucking, I'd be impressed with that. That'd be impressive.
I think that'd be hard for a lot of guys. Even
What was the last, wasn't there one of the last contests, I think it might have been maybe a class show where they had like a deadlift for reps. And it was pretty heavy, right?
Last was 660, right?
Was it something like that? I
the
don't-
deadlift.
Yeah.
So I think it ended up being like 630 because that's what they could fit on the axle.
And didn't a couple guys go like double digits? It was an axle?
I think, yeah, and I want to say McKeegan got 9 on
Was
it.
that the winning number?
Yes, and then Dan
On the
got 8.
axle? And
Yeah.
then,
Hey,
assuming the weights were, what they said they were on an axle, that's pretty damn impressive, I think.
yeah.
That
Because
was
what we hit is
675.
600 on a power bar, Sean, at Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, we were a couple events in, which I'm sure they were probably a couple events in too. So we were a little pre-fatigued, but yeah, no, we had 600, and I think you and I went for like 11 or 12.
Yeah, something like that.
But on a Texas power bar, Texas deadlift bar that has a lot of whip to it, I mean, you know what I mean? It's nowhere near comparable to the same weight on an axle.
30, yeah.
Yeah, it's not even. I mean, I think I remember seeing that like just from this question that stuck in my head, and I was like, I don't know if I ever could have done that. I mean, I'm not super great at reps anyway, but I don't know if I ever could have done that. That would have killed me. I would have been dead after that event if I would have had to do 9 reps at that axle. Holy crap.
I think you would have did it though. That's why I hated competing.
Yeah, it took a few more years off my life. Yeah.
James, what impresses you these days?
I can't believe 105 kilos are closing in on 300 on dumbbell. Like
That is
upper 200.
Oh yeah,
That is
good point. Good
To
point.
me, a 180-pound dumbbell is a heavy dumbbell. It is completely crazy that we're expected to do like 210 at ASM, much less people are hitting 280. Come on. That's crazy.
That is, yeah, and even if it's only 1 or 2 guys, right? Well, I don't know how many guys are above 250. If you're above 250 on a dumbbell at 105, that's
I think there could be
Pretty
like
damn good.
4 or 5 this coming weekend over 250. You potentially could see like Luke Meredith, maybe Frank, Jesse, Tommy, and myself. And maybe
Frank ain't
McQuiston.
gonna get anywhere near that.
Maybe McQuiston. He's generally a pretty good presser. He's one of those amateur. He's one of the amateur qualifiers that got into ASM, but he's usually a pretty good presser.
And Andrew Clayton, he's not doing ASM, I don't think, but he's still in the upper 200s. He's still around 265, 270.
He's the current American holder of the circus
Yeah.
dumbbell for 105 kilos. So he was at 270 when he got back.
And ASM's max this year?
It's a max circus dumbbell.
It wasn't originally though, right? That got changed.
It got changed. Yes, someone put it. I put in a word.
You lobbied for that, didn't you?
I asked, and everybody was cool with it. But
Well-
either way, I'm gonna be pretty good at the dumbbell either way. Just be
Yeah.
nice to maybe add a record. Originally, of course, while we're on the topic, I wanted to do it so I could potentially sweep all 4 records. But the week before, Emmanuel Pasquari, Dr. Death, decides to hit a 190 log. I knew he was a pretty strong log presser. I didn't know he was going after it. I know he's done 180 kilos or 396 in the past, but I was like, dang, he could have just waited like a week and a half to potentially have all 4 at one time. So that was the goal, because I know eventually all these records are gonna be broken. But I guess you could just say I'm just going for I've broken the record at one point in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, so we were talking about in terms of kind of what impresses you guys, but anything lately in terms of like watching people's training, watching people in competition that just really grinds your gears, just makes you upset or unhappy?
Now we're going the opposite way.
Yes, we are going the opposite way.
Oof. I don't know. How much time do we have?
We got about we got 10-ish minutes.
And you're asking what grinds our gears?
What grinds your gears, Sean,
Jesus
James, and
Christ.
Terry?
What grinds my gears is just like how many people that
You can't
compete.
ask that question, dude. That's-
Dude, no, I'll answer it. How many people
Yeah.
compete right now in any weight class except for the open heavyweights How many people compete and then they still have like the audacity to bitch about money or whatever? And I'm like, dude, we used to do this shit in like parking lots for like a fucking Chili's gift card. Like, and we had a blast doing it. Like, I'm just saying, like, people should be super stoked about like the level of venue, the level of implement, the level of like competition, everything going on right now. Everyone should be super, super thankful, because like not but 5 years ago, it was completely different. And 10 years ago, it was way different. I mean, I remember when it was 231 and over, 231 and under, dude. Like it, you know, and you're competing on janky equipment. You don't know if you're gonna die or catch, you know, fucking tetanus.
There's nothing wrong with progression and the sport, you know, evolving and being more, you know, I don't know, visually appealing for spectators and just nicer for the athletes to compete in. But the expectations that people have and the assumptions that they have is just out of control. I mean, I don't know when everything became all about money, but just to me, that's the way it seems, is like, you know, people are valuing shows based on prize money or promises from promoters. And that is just some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I mean, this sport is essentially backyard wrestling. Like you can't expect this sport to be anything really other than that. You do this sport because you have a passion for it. You know, it speaks to you. You feel like you could do it, so you go out and do it. You know, but it's not for everybody, not even close. It'll never be mainstream, not on our level, because it just won't. There's a million reasons why it won't. You know, but people are assuming that because the heavyweight open men are getting exposure and contracts and money, that should trickle down to the other classes. And it's great if it does, but I mean, there should absolutely be no expectation for that, is, you know, my take on it. So, I mean, I guess that grinds my gears, is that, you know, to piggyback on what Terry's saying, you know, the expectation that people deserve prize money or they value a show over one another because it has prize money or sponsors is just silly. It's just a really shallow way to think about this sport. Yeah. So
I just wonder if these people are like having fun. I used to have so much fun. Like it was so fun. You know,
I never had fun. I just felt that it was something I had to do. Like I feel like I didn't have a choice.
Shut up. We had a blast at ASM 2018.
After the contest.
We had fun during the contest.
I had fun watching you do things you shouldn't do to make me winning a lot easier. That was fun.
Oh, you mean like me asking Scott to switch the order of competitors so you didn't have to go against me and you could go after me? I remember that. I'll never forget.
Who asked for that?
You did.
I would never ask for that.
Scott came up with it himself then.
Yeah, no, because he does it for the crowd, you know, when we have tens of people
watching.
Right. Well, when we have our tens of fans in the audience, you can't put the best person first. The best person goes last. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, we had an order. The Pat
Look at James waiting to jump in here.
Came, and then like Scott wanted to change it, but he wanted to put the best people last, but he didn't know how good people were. He knew how good you were. He knew how good Kristen Rhodes was. It just happened to be that all the people that he trained with would have gone last. If there was an objective measure to like put the best people last, and we decided beforehand, I'd say I'd be game for it. But otherwise, you got to go with, you know, either random selection or order of entry or something like that. You know.
Technically, I beat Sean in 2017, so I should have gone after him on the log. I think that's only fair.
Oh, because of the year prior.
Because your knee exploded. So I think and my knee didn't explode. So anything that's a win. I won because I survived the contest.
Yeah, I don't know,
dude. That 3K series was brutal, especially because the bar was like right here for Sean.
And you know what?
48 inches, like right there.
I know we're getting off topic here, but I remember training that medley and doing it, and I was like, I don't know. I think my time's okay, but I don't think it's super great because I wasn't getting under like 25 seconds in training, and I didn't know where anybody else was. And I remember like the show starting and a few people going, and then I don't know. All I remember is like people were killing the medley, and I was like, I'm not even going to come anywhere near that. And then sure enough, I died. But yeah, I knew my show. I knew that show was over for me as soon as I saw a few people. I think James hit like 19 seconds or Clayton, because Clayton did really bad in the farmers, just kind of by accident. I think something, he just got.
Clayton won that event. I got second on it.
Yeah. Okay.
He was a good margin in front of me, but I was a good margin in front of third for sure.
On the carry medley.
Yeah.
And what was your time?
I don't remember what the time was.
It
honestly wasn't my fastest, but it was okay.
I probably say I say it every time we bring it up, but then of course after you kind of your knee exploded, Brian Shaw picked you up like a baby and carried you out of the ring. Like I think that's probably the only person that could say that that you got carried out by Brian Shaw. Huh? But he had you in his arms, like just like a front carry. Carrying you out.
Thank God, because I wasn't walking out of there. So thank God.
Brian, you've saved my life.
No problem, guys.
So Brian's useful for a lot of things. Carrying is one of them.
So the way I kind of want to end the show is a piece of wisdom for everybody. So of course, you guys being veterans of the sport, what's one piece of advice you guys want to leave the listeners for today?
You got to love the sport. I mean, that's what's got to drive you. If you're doing it for fame, if you're doing it for money, it's probably not, it's not going to be, it's going to be harder. It's not going to be what you want it to be. You got to love the sport.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing is like, that's what I think made every single one of us get to the level we got to was just it was just so fun. Like, it's such a goofy, fun, beautiful sport. And that's like one thing I'll always like, I love the direction that the sport's going. But that's one thing, I'll always cherish is, getting to experience the roots of it. You know what I'm saying? And that how it grew and watching it grow. So yeah, if you love this sport, it'll be really good to you and
Sean.
I think they said it very well. So I think I would agree with that. And all things considered, yeah, do things in life for the right reasons, in all aspects, but specifically to strongman, yeah, do it for the right reasons. If you're thinking you're going to be famous on Instagram or get sponsors are going to pay for you in your life, ain't gonna happen. So stop it.
I like it. I always say trust the process, just one event at a time, one competition at a time. Don't overlook, just focus what's in front of you.
Another thing, everybody needs to stop fucking complaining so much out there in the world. Okay, everybody needs to just chill out.
Targeting me? Why don't you say my name? Say my name.
Stop arguing online. Stop complaining so damn much. Okay.
And for everyone that is competing this weekend at ASM, dude, just enjoy the memories. Like, just soak it up, soak up every time you step on the field, soak up every conversation you have in the back. Just enjoy that moment, because one day you're not going to get to do it anymore, and it's going to absolutely break your heart. So really, 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 really just cherish. And that goes for anybody listening. Every contest you do, I still remember ripping all the skin off this hand on a farmer's carry and Brian Shaw taping my hand up at Mid-America or Central USA Strongman in 2013. And it's, you don't just enjoy it. Just fucking enjoy the sport, man.
Was he super excited to tape your hands up?
He was actually like very stoked about it. He was like, yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, and then taped my hand up. That was it was the first event too. I did the rest of the contest and there was just blood going down my arm the whole time. It was a nightmare. It was an absolute
we should share horror stories from our America's Strongest Mans. I don't know if we have time for that. Is Zoom going to kick us off in an hour?
No, Zoom's not going to kick us off. We're here. We tell us some horror stories, Sean.
God, well, I don't want to use my knee as one, but that is the worst. But I remember my very first ASM, 2010, where I took 10th place, and it was a rude awakening, because I thought I was going to do a whole lot better than I did, and I ended up taking 10th place out of, I think, 14 guys. So definitely didn't do very well at all. And I tore my callus on like what I thought was gonna be like my best event was the car deadlift, and just I strapped up like a dummy and ended up tearing the calluses on my hand during the car deadlift. And I thought it would be a smart idea to put like a wide receiver glove over it and then do a wheelbarrow carry. Not a smart idea. And yeah, I learned a whole lot that show, got my ass kicked and better for it. But yeah, I mean, that was my first ASM, 10th place out of 14. So, you never know where you're going to start and where you're going to end up. So, suck it up and go for it.
Wow, they should put that on a Nike ad.
I know, right?
Just do it.
Just do it.
You guys want to add anything?
James?
No.
Oh,
No?
I would say, do you remember James and Camby at ASM 2019? Whenever I tried pressing that log and I had like a friggin' seizure afterwards.
You go like lightheaded, right?
Yeah, don't touch me. I was shaking. Don't touch me.
Fish out of water.
No, I was trying to get an IV the night before, and the guy who was running my IV line blew out my veins 6 times with the same catheter. So he threw the catheter away, and I didn't have another one. So I had planned for those 2 bags, and so I had taken in a bunch of salt. So I woke up the next day, my blood pressure was like 160 over 100. And whenever
same problem in Dallas, remember we all had bruises.
Yeah, they sucked at Dallas too. But yeah, I pressed like a 330 log or whatever, and I was like, oh, this is not gonna go well. Like I was immediately lightheaded. I was like, this is not gonna go well. And then bags came around. I still hadn't shaken that off. I remember going to some supplement shop and then grabbing a thing of vasodilating pre-workout and just said, I'll pay for this after. And then ran over and started like downing like citrulline malate to get some like blood flow. Yeah, that was a nightmare show.
How about an impressive moment? I think when on 17 when James won with the torn bicep, I think that was a highlight through all my ASM. Seeing that, James, that was pretty damn impressive. You pulling out the win on that show for sure, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, the only problem with deadlifting with the torn bicep is I lost my grip after 4 reps on the axle, like even with straps and everything.
Yeah.
You couldn't feel it anymore. Your hand was gone.
Well, yeah, so I was letting my arm completely loose, and I was using a figure 8 strap, and it was sliding off my hand, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it in time, so I ran out of time.
And you had a tiebreaker for Farmer's Hold, that right?
What was that?
You had a tiebreaker with Farmer's Hold, right?
Yeah.
But just winning that show after tearing his bicep.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Most people would have been torn their bicep and have been done. I mean, honestly, I probably would have been done. I would have been like,
that was like the easiest injury I've ever had. Like it honestly, your bicep doesn't work, but the surgery is super easy. You know exactly how to recover from it. Compared to like my back problems, my knee problems, my shoulder problems, like the bicep has been just no problem at all. It barely hurt.
James hasn't been 100% healthy for a show since like 2014. Just like I always have an injury, and you still show up and you compete and you fucking do well too. That's like the craziest part.
Even growing up, I've had lots of injuries. That's just everyone has their weaknesses and strengths, and that's just my weakness. Is I get hurt.
Tough as fuck.
Yeah, like
resilient.
Yeah.
Aren't you from like North Dakota or something?
Minnesota, then North Dakota. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why. Just tough.
That's why.
Just tough as fuck.
Living in the tundra makes you tough.
I don't have any horror stories per se, but I did have a fun anecdote in terms of every time I went into America's Strongest Man, starting in 2016. I'm like, all right, I'm going in, I'm gonna win. Everybody else is coming in for second. I go in there, I'm like, fifth. All right, next year I'm going to fifth. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to win. Oh, third. That's pretty cool. All right, I'm going to win. Fifth again. So it was a rude awakening, even the first 4 years. So every year I was like, I'm getting there. And then I was like, oh, these guys are pretty good too.
You spent so many years getting like fifth and third and stuff, and then now look at you. You go to a show and we're all like, Cammy's winning, who's getting second?
Takes time.
Yeah, exactly.
Cammy's put in a lot of time.
Yeah, but that's what happens. I remember when McCarley was, won 3 in a row. Like, I mean, everybody knew he was the one to beat, every year, and everybody was trying to take him off the throne. It just takes time. I mean, I did my first win of ASM was 2014, but I did, 10, 11, 12, 13, I mean, I did a bunch of them and didn't do all that awesome. I mean, I think 12 and 13, I took second, both those years. So, I mean, that was a tough pill to swallow, and not trying to either switch weight classes or just give up altogether, just keep grinding through it. But eventually, you will have your day, I think, if you put enough time into it. But it's a process for sure. I never expected to win any of those shows. Honestly, I never once walked into one of those shows and was like, oh yeah, I'm going to win. No problem. It was never did I ever think that. I always knew I was going to have to battle it out. And just about every single one of them came down to the wire at the end. I had to battle it out, so.
I like it. Love it. But I think that's all my questions for today, boys. And for the listeners, remember to like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, so you know when all the cool videos are coming out. Make sure you tell all your friends about the episodes, especially our 105 kilo friends. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure catching up. I'm not sure when I'm going to see all your nice faces in the future, but hopefully see you guys at some point for the rest of the year. But again, I appreciate you guys coming on.
Hey, is ASM going to be live streamed? James, can be?
It's not. It's gonna be a post production, but I'll try to give as many updates on my social medias as I can. But yeah, it's gonna be a post production, which I think might be pretty cool.
Is there going to be live updating? Sorry,
I imagine there'll probably be live updating.
James, you know
someone's probably gonna be there.
Somebody will talk about it on
Someone
Reddit.
I imagine someone at Southside will be doing. We'll have the live updates and then kind of filling everybody in and then having a whole post production. So I think that would be pretty neat. But everybody stay strong, work hard this week, and until next time.